Hi, welcome to Movies You Missed, a new podcast hosted by me, your host, Jace Cudlin. I hope to explore here movies like the title says, movies that you might have missed, movies that you might have not seen due to various reasons. Whether they underperformed at the box office or had a limited release, or they were panned by critics or got unfavorable negative reviews. I hope to just shed some light on movies like that a lot of people think are bad or just haven't seen, that I think are worth seeing. I let's try to think, why am I doing this podcast? Well, I guess the reason behind it is I'm a huge movie fan. Been watching movies my entire life. I watch about a movie a day probably. I think, at least I try to. It's like the most enjoyable thing I've found in this life is the viewing of films and the experiences and the feelings and the discussions that follow. Yeah, like I said, I've watched movies ever since I was a little kid. I mean, I like it, like everyone, liking movies is not a unique experience. Of course, I don't think I'm not, special in that way, and that I like movies and I've watched them since I was a kid. But it's just something that I thoroughly enjoyed and thoroughly enjoyed talking about. Um, so I guess that's why I'm here today. I think the origins of this podcast that you are hearing right now are just that I watch movies, a lot of movies, like a lot of movies, and I watch a lot of movies that I don't know. I think in today's day and age, especially with like all the forms of stimuli that are out there, and all the different distractions and art forms and art mediums, I think that's right, that are out there. I think people watch movies less. I know people definitely go to the theater less. Um, But it's just like I feel like people don't like go exploring for movies like they used to. I know for a fact that I guess like a conversation I've had with people like a million times. I have the same conversation. I'm like, oh, have you seen? I'll quote a movie, and they'll be like, what does that mean? And I'll be like, oh, have you not seen blank? Have you not seen so and so? And they'll be like, yeah, no, no, I have not, unfortunately. And I'll be like, oh, okay. So they don't get the reference. And they haven't seen the movie. Or I'll be like, hey, have you seen this? This is just like this. And they'll be like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's happened so many times, a million times. And I guess to like prevent that from happening again to anyone else, I'd like to be able to like, I don't know, just broaden the horizons of anyone who may choose to listen to this by exposing them to like all different kinds of movies that they probably wouldn't see normally. You know what I mean? Um, because people, I think nowadays, like, are just scroll through Netflix, scroll through Hulu, HBO Max, and they're like, oh, let me find something to watch. What's on here? And then, but like, if these movies aren't on things like that, then they don't get seen. I mean, because people aren't going to movie theaters. People don't rent movies anymore from video stores. So it's just like people. I mean, as much as I hate to say, people don't go to libraries as much as they used to, not by a long shot. So I guess I just want to show people what's out there, or yeah, like what's been out there that I guess they just didn't even know about. Because I certainly don't by any means have like my finger on the pulse when it comes to like the new hot movie, really. Because I'm more of a relic. I like to live in the past, and I like to rewatch and explore the things that have come before. I'm a historian by trade, and I guess that also reflects in my movie watching. There was this thing in that movie Greenberg. I don't know. Again, I don't know if you've seen it. It might be a show we do on, or it might be a movie we do on this show. But there, it's with this movie with Ben Stiller, directed by Greta Gerwig's husband, who's a famous director in his own right, but I can't remember his name right now. But his Ben Stiller's character in the movie, this Roger Greenberg guy, is like, yeah, I only listen to music and music from the past, and I because it's a way to pretend um, that I don't exist because I'm living in the past, like a time before I was alive. So a little a little maudlin, but I guess I think it kind of fits my life a little bit. But yeah, so I think people started being like, hey, you should like I started people were like, yeah, you should like write movie reviews or something. You really have a hard on for movies and love talking about movies. Why don't you stop bothering me with it and start like writing it down? Find some outlets for this weird thing you have where you will watch all these weird movies and reference them all the time, to the chagrin of others. So yeah, I started writing movie reviews and I wrote some movie reviews. I had my own blog for a while. You wouldn't be able to find it anywhere, so don't worry. But then I know and I started doing that, and people like my friends would read them, and they'd be like, "Yeah, this is good. This is cool. You know, you're putting a lot of detail and effort into this, and I can tell you really like movies and are passionate about movies. Um, but you should make like a podcast or like a YouTube channel or something. People don't read movie reviews, and I think it just is like people are lazy and they don't like to read anything. But I thought I'm like, that's not a bad idea. I'm a huge fan of podcasts. I listen to podcasts every time I drive in the car, I'm listening to a podcast every time. People are like, "Hey, will you listen to any good songs on the way over here?" I said, "No, I listen to just people talking." So, but yeah, so I'm a big advocate for podcasts. Love podcasts. So I was like, oh, I guess I can maybe try to start one of those things. Um, and then I tried to start it, and it would start and stop, and I had some misfires. And I actually recorded, didn't release, but recorded 4 episodes um, around this time last year, I think. I think at the outbreak of the coronavirus in the United States, because when we were all in lockdown and quarantine, I had so much time. I had an unbelievable amount of time on my hands. And believe me, I loved it. I said, oh, I can't go outside. I can't go out anywhere. My friends want to hang out. I can't. I have to just go to work and then come home. I was in heaven, basically. How long that would have lasted and the effects it would have had on my mental state, you know, probably wouldn't have been great. But for those couple months, I was living like Larry. It was terrific. And I was watching a ton of movies. The amount of movies I watched, unbelievable, staggering. Um, on days where I didn't work, I would just wake up, go to class, get done with class at like 1, watch movies the rest of the day until I went to bed. It was unbelievable. Um, but yeah, during that time, I wrote recorded 4 episodes, and whether or not I will ever release those episodes, maybe I will. Um, for you, the fans, at some point, if there is you know, if there is a need for it, if there is demand for it, I will release those. Because they're pretty funny. I remember what were the movies I covered? Robert Rodriguez's The Faculty, Guillermo del Toro's Mimic, um, and the movie Anti-Birth with Natasha Lyonne and Chloe Sevigny, and then Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain. And those were fun. I enjoyed each of those episodes, and I remember I found like some sort of hokey guitar music as an intro, and then some different guitar music as an outro. I had outro and intro music, and I had like scripts and like show notes, and I had like different pages of notes, and then I'd have like Google Docs up, and then I'd have internet windows up, and I was reading from all this stuff. And the episodes were like an hour, sometimes like an hour 45 minutes. Which like I don't know, I don't have an exact length I'd like to go to during these things. Um, it's just wherever the conversation takes us. But yeah, they were fun to record, and I like doing it. It's just like more an outlet for me to talk about movies that I can't talk about with anyone else because no one's watching them. So that's all that it really is for me. Um, that's all it was, and that's all it's probably going to be to start. I'd like to get to the point where I have maybe guests on to talk about the movies with, because I think that's very fun. I think there's nothing better than talking about movies with people. Just like a streamlined conversation about one thing is a way to have like a really, really good in-depth conversation. Because I mean, you never know where it's going to go. It can lead, it can go off on tangents. You can really get into stuff. But like, as long as it's centered around one specific idea or concept, I think a conversation can really, really, really flourish. I remember for the episode I did of The Fountain, I had a guest on who's one of my best friends since I was a kid. He's a very smart guy. His name's Dirk Polderman. But yeah, we talked about The Fountain. We sat down and talked about The Fountain for like almost 2 hours. Longer than the actual, almost as long. I actually, it might have been longer than the movie. I'm not sure, but it was one of the best conversations I've ever had in my life. I loved every second. It was terrific. I actually like. I'll be honest with you. I connected with my friend in a way that like I don't know if we ever really had. Just talking while hanging out in a big group of us, and I've gotten onto a lot of hijinks with that guy. So but yeah, it was terrific. I'd definitely be open to having guests on eventually. I'd like to get a different setup for that. Some better equipment, better microphones. Maybe become more established and confident as a podcaster, as a host in general. Before I start doing that, I think that would be great. But in the meantime, I think I would just like to rock it solo. Um, just untethered, unlimited stream of consciousness. Just me babbling, talking about movies. And then when I go see my girlfriend later, I won't have to bother her about it. And I won't have to bother my friends and my parents. Um, and yeah, I just like the freedom of that. So for now, I think it'll just be me. But then guests later on. But yeah, so movies you missed. That's the angle I chose. Because there was a lot of different ideas I floated around. I said, I could just do action movies. I could just do legal drama movies. I could just have a sci-fi horror podcast. I could just have a podcast where I talk about the TV show Fringe. But then I settled on this because on this because I think it was just like the most interesting outlet. Oh, there's a car alarm in the background. Very cool. Yeah, I'm recording this from my bedroom at my parents' house where I live. Hey, um, yeah, living with my parents. It's very cool. But I'll set the scene for you. It's a Sunday. It's 11:48 a.m. The date, November 28th, 2021. A couple days after Thanksgiving. There's Thanksgiving leftovers floating around. I've been eating good for the last couple days, okay? Comfort food. I'm stuffed. All right. I had a piece of pumpkin pie 10 minutes ago. I have a giant cup of coffee right next to me. Hot. I take my coffee black with a little bit of cream. Just cool it down a little bit, enough for me to sip on. And I got next to me Jurassic Park mug. I'm sitting in a large, comfy chair. It's a computer swivelly chair, but it's like bigger. It has arms. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's very comfortable. Has a little bit of a smoky smell because I grabbed it out of someone's garbage. All right, but it's very, very comfortable. Sitting there at my desk, laptop in front of me, cat behind me sitting on my bed. He's knocked out. Absolutely knocked out. I just tried to nudge him awake. Nothing. But yeah, it's a very cozy, very intimate kind of setting here in which we're recording. The setting in which I like to watch movies most. I'm a homebody. If you couldn't tell that by everything I've said thus far, I like to be inside. I like indoor activities. I'm an introvert. All right, and that's why I love movies. Okay, it's like you can get all these experience all these feelings and ideas all from the comfort of your own home. I love it. It's the best. Um, I mean, yeah, movies are, as you know. I mean, this has been pointed out 1,000 times. Movies are a form of escape. You shut yourself in, turn off the lights, click on the movie, and then your problems. melt away. They're in your rearview mirror. And all you can focus on is this. And it is nice. And I do agree that movies can be a form of escapism. Absolutely. No question about it. But I really think movies are just as much escapism as they are a sort of entrance. You know what I mean? They allow you to feel things and experience things that you could never feel and experience otherwise. You can feel, grief and loss without actually having to experience those things and be, wrecked and devastated by them. You can get like a small fraction of it in your heart. And I'll tell you what, I'm a big crier. I cry at the drop of a hat. I especially cry while watching movies. I cry watching movies all the time. But yeah, movies, I mean, not just, they don't just make you feel sad, but they make you feel really good. And they make you feel scared, obviously, horror movies. But yeah, they just like, they give you a little piece of these really, really intense feelings that are sometimes have consequences and impacts or can be hard to grapple with. But you get like a piece of them and it's real and you feel it, it's tangible. But then, you can pull back, exit the room, go to the bathroom, and you're like, oh, I didn't just lose a loved one to AIDS or something. Or my boyfriend didn't just die in a car accident. I'm okay. Wipe the little teardrops away, and you're okay. It's an entrance, and that's why I love it. And that's why I don't really care for movies that don't elicit certain reactions. I guess I don't know. That's just me. And like as I said, it's an indoor activity. It's a cozy vibe. It's just a nice time watching movies, whether you're in a theater, whether you're in the comfort of your own home, whether you're in the comfort of a friend's home, whether you're at a drive-in. There's blankets involved. You're in a comfy setting, hopefully. It's just nice. But yeah, on this show, I think I don't know. I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of different movies. I mean, like, because of who I am as a person, and because I'll be the one dictating what movies I watch, what movies are discussed. Um, I have a penchant for sci-fi horror, legal drama, regular old school horror, um, noir, neo noir, like spy thriller, sports drama, erotic thriller. Easy, stay with me. Like buddy comedy, movies that make you sad. Franchises. I do like certain franchises. But yeah, we're gonna talk about all different kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? All different kinds of things. I don't want to limit myself too much as to what I can talk about. I mean, I want to discuss movies, obviously, but I'm not opposed to discussing a TV movie or maybe a really short limited series. Like I'm watching that Stephen King's The Shining miniseries from 1997. It's pretty good. Got a lot of good stuff in there. And I'm like, man, do I really not want to be able to talk about this because it's technically a miniseries? If you think I won't open the doors for that, you're crazy. Or like It miniseries. Stephen King has like a treasure trove of miniseries that are like equal parts schlock and like good production value because it's like ABC. So it's like, there's a lot of good stuff there, despite being generally a little corny. But I mean, yeah, we got to, I don't want to limit myself. So, I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Eventually, like, if people want to reach out to me at our email, which is moviesyamissed@gmail.com, you can find it in the show notes, movies, Y-A, ya, missed at gmail.com, and recommend movies for me to watch. Absolutely. You know, as a, as a seeker and purveyor of films, I'm always looking for new ones to watch. Believe me. The list that I want to do for this podcast and the list that I want to watch in my personal life grow every single day. So don't be afraid to reach out. I ask for recommendations from my friends. I compiled a massive list of ones I'd like to cover before we get into it. But, you know, only time will tell, sky's the limit. But yeah, it's just going to be me talking. And we're going to go through beat by beat. specific, plot points, thoughts I had on the movie, um, just like be pleat by pleat of the pants of the movie. Um, but yeah, we're just gonna go through the movie. I'll break down some like maybe some trivia stuff, some interesting facts, maybe some goofs and gaffs about the movie. And of course, even though we like these movies, I'll be a little critical. I can be a little critical. Um, I think it's just part of the viewing experience to have, you know, things you like, things you don't like, and there's no reason to shy away from either. And I personally can be a very critical person when it comes to movies. You know what I mean? As much as I like things about every movie I've ever seen, there's also always going to be things I don't like, and I always want to talk about those too. Sometimes there's a lot about movies I don't like. Those movies won't end up on this podcast, obviously. But I remember I took a film class in high school, which is cool. I'm glad that's an opportunity I had in high school. But I remember, I think before taking that class, I think I basically liked every movie I ever watched. And then I took that class, and then my teacher was like, "Yeah, you gotta view movies with a more critical eye." And then I did that. It like split my life into two parts, like years 1 through 18, where I was just like, "Oh, every movie's pretty good," and then 18 onward, where I'm like, "Oh, let's be critical because there are things I like, but there's a lot of stuff I don't like, and it's fun to point out both." So I've ever since then I've been more critical of movies. Ever since then, I take notes basically on every movie I watch, and if I can't take notes on the movie, I record my notes later. Like recently, I watched was it Halloween Kills, and I watched it with my girlfriend, and we were talking and chatting about it like almost the whole time. It's kind of like taking notes. But then after she left, ran upstairs, got a notepad, jotted down like 2 pages of notes about the movie because you got to get these feelings down. I'm a very scatterbrained person. I got a lot going on inside my mind. Got to get this stuff down because you'll forget it. Where was I going? That was a tangent. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the things we don't like about the movie, the things we like. Um, and at the end, I like to talk about like, what they did that I really liked, what they did that I think could have been done differently, could have been done better. Not that I'm an expert, of course, certainly not an expert, but just a person with opinions, sharing them, screaming them into a void. You don't have to listen. The people who made this movie probably will never hear this, so it's okay. I'm not offending anyone. Um, and I'd like to know like how, I'll discuss how I watched the film, like through what medium, if I use like a streaming service, hard copy, whatever, what my first experience was watching this movie. Um, certain things like that. Nothing crazy, but I'd really like to just get into the movie, discuss it. And for now, this is gonna be pretty stripped down, pretty basic. I'd rather start simple, be able to move forward, than start big and have to backtrack. That's why there's no intro and outro music. Because I listened to the intro and outro music I had on those first couple episodes I made, hated it, and I was just like, imagine if I released that, then I'd have to like change it halfway through. Not great. So before I can commit, and yeah, I don't know, I'm not very good at committing to things anyway, so it's easier to just not. So for now, just gonna be very stripped down, and we can add stuff as we go. But today we're gonna talk about easy. It's a science fiction horror movie. Okay, this is a genre that I absolutely adore. I love science fiction. I love horror. The blending of them, although not usually very financially lucrative or critically successful, very near and dear to my heart. I love science fiction horror. It's so great. I love I don't know what it says about me, but I love the grotesque. I love like mutations and like body morphing and just like sludge and slime. I don't know. Gross stuff. Um and then like especially when it's like science fiction horror involving a creature, dude. If you think the first like 15 movies that we do, if you think 8 of them are going to be like with some sort of creature, you're out of your mind. Okay, I'm already going to do John Frankenheimer's Prophecy. All right, that's coming up in the top next 5. All right. If you think we're not going to do Jaws 2, you're nuts. All right. I love stuff with creatures. Love a good creature effect. I mean, look at those. Look at, I mean, Mimic, that other one. What was the other one? Mimic, Anti-Birth. Disgusting movies. Mimic, especially. Anything Stan Winston effects, gimme, gimme. This movie that we're about to cover, 1989's Leviathan. Okay, Stan Winston effects. You know I'm excited for those Stan Winston effects, baby. You know I love it. You know I love it. Don't even get me started on those Stan Winston effects. R.I.P. But yeah, so 1989's Leviathan. I said Leviathan with an F. It's with a V. Leviathan, as in the biblical word meaning a sea monster. This word identified in different passages of the Bible. Um, sometimes relating to the devil or like a whale or a crocodile. Um, so Leviathan, okay. And yeah, I got notes. I got 3 pages of notes. Let's get into it. So this movie, directed by George B. Cosmatos, follows the crew of an undersea geological facility as they become prey to a mutant creature they unknowingly brought on board their ship. This movie takes place in the year 2027, and the film was released by MGM, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, and produced by Filmaro, which is an Italian production company. So it was directed, like I said, by George P. Cosmatos, Italian film director. He directed Rambo 2, Cobra, and that Western movie Tombstone, which I've never seen. Cobra, though, might be on this show. Um, it was the story idea comes from David Peoples, who wrote 12 Monkeys and wrote Blade Runner. Or I guess he didn't write Blade Runner; he adapted Blade Runner from the novel. But it was written by David Peoples and Jeb Stewart, who Jeb Stewart wrote Die Hard. And there's some Die Hardisms in this movie. Believe me. It was produced by Aurelio De Laurentiis and Luigi De Laurentiis, who are kin of the famous Dino De Laurentiis. Basically, a higher class Roger Corman, produced a ton of movies, a ton of movies. Dino De Laurentiis produced just some great movies. Looking at his filmography, R.I.P. though. Wait, is Dino De Laurentiis dead? What am I talking about? Why am I just spewing stuff I don't even know about? Oh, yes, he is dead. I don't mean to cheer for him being dead. I just like being right, I guess. But yeah, no, he was a real pro. He was an Italian American film producer. This film, despite really not having any Italian elements, very Italian film because of the production companies involved. Um, so the score of this movie is actually really, really good. Actually, like one of the highlights of this movie, I would think, is the score. Sorry, my voice is getting weird. Need some lubrication. Coffee. Today we're drinking Seattle's best medium roast. It's not very strong. But yeah, the score, conducted by American composer Jerry Goldsmith. Jerry Goldsmith, one of the baddest dudes. Okay, I mean Jerry Goldsmith is like maybe my favorite composer. I mean, of course, there's like John Williams, who's great. But like scores are just amazing. If I can get his filmography up here, I mean, like it's like the list is it's unbelievable. I mean, he did the scores for Total Recall, Gremlins, um, some of the Poltergeist movies, The Burbs, Warlock, Rambo, Inner Space. It looks like I think he worked a lot with Joe Dante. He's Supergirl, Twilight Zone, the movie, the Omen movies. I mean, Alien, Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Oh, I mean the list goes on. I mean he's done scores for everything. Patton. He's just like Stagecoach. No, I mean he's just the ultimate. I think he's like the pinnacle of composers for movies, and I think he's just like he should be in the conversation. Like people know John Williams, people don't know Jared Goldsmith, which is unbelievable. You know. Excuse me, I'm very sorry about that. But yeah, no, he's phenomenal, and the score in this movie very good, very suspenseful, um, just very nice. Like it fits the scenes beautifully. And then, like I said, creature effects by none other than Stan Winston. Which, by golly, if that doesn't just make for a good movie in itself. And I mean, Stan Winston did creature effects for and special effects for Terminator movies, Jurassic Park movies, Aliens, The Thing, um, Predator, Iron Man, Edward Scissorhands. I mean, he won a bunch of Academy Awards. Worked with Tim Burton a lot, Spielberg, James Cameron. R.I.P. to Stan Winston as well. He was one of the greats. But yeah, I mean, so like, I don't know. Like on paper, this movie should have been a slam dunk. You know what I mean? It's got all the right pieces. Let me get into the cast here. We got RoboCop's Peter Weller. I mean, we got Ernie Hudson from you probably know him from Ghostbusters. He's been in a slew of things though. And he's great. He's got one of the best mustaches in the game, even though he's mustacheless in this movie for some reason. But like he's the best. Even though, do you guys ever think about how in Ghostbusters he kind of gets the shaft in Ghostbusters? Like he's not even like listed in the main credits on the cover of the DVD, and he's only like comes in halfway through the movie. It's like he really kind of gets the short end, and he's not a scientist. I don't know. Kind of seems almost racist. The way they treat Winston Zeddemore. But like I don't know. Maybe they made fun for it in Ghostbusters 2. I haven't seen Ghostbusters 2 in many many years. I remember hating it, but and then I know he's in the new one. Maybe they give him a little better treatment in the new one, but not a lot of disrespect thrown towards Ernie Hudson in that first Ghostbusters movie. With that being said, yeah, he was in fact in Ghostbusters, and he's been in a lot of different stuff. Um, for a while though, I won't lie to you, I got Ernie Hudson and Keith David mixed up for a long time. Thought they were the same person. They're not. They're definitely not. I think they have similar vibes though. I think they're just like I think, and they do similar roles. I think because I mean Keith David was in The Thing. I think he played basically the same role that Ernie Hudson plays in this movie, and he was in They Live. And I think they're strong, powerful looking African American men, um, and they just have powerful voices. And I think that's it. I think that's they probably were dueling for the same roles. I imagine, probably duking it out. Sorry, who else is in this movie? Amanda Pays is in this movie, who I know from TV's The Flash, and she was in the 1990s Flash. She was also in Max Headroom. Um, but she's great in this movie. She's kind of the female lead. She gets like second billing under Peter Weller. So like, but like she didn't do a lot. She has not done a lot of acting. I don't think in a lot of stuff. I was looking at her filmography. Um, not very extensive. Let's see here. Oh, how can I forget? We got Daniel Stern from the Home Alone movies. He's in this movie. He's very young in this movie, very skinny looking. Definitely his most relaxed looking I've seen him. His character in this movie is a little troublesome, but he's always a familiar face you like to see. Um, got Michael Carmine, Lisa Eilbacher, Hector Elizondo, Meg Foster, bunch of people I'd never really seen in anything before. And then Richard Crenna is plays the doctor. He's supposedly like I never heard of Richard Crenna before watching this movie, but I'm like, oh, he's in a lot of stuff. He's in a lot of stuff. because he was like third build. I said, "Who's Richard Crenna?" But he's been in a lot of TV stuff, a lot of cool, a lot of stuff that that escapes me right now. But I mean, he's a very pretty prolific actor actually. He's terrific in this movie. I can't even. I mean, just to go into it for a second, um, he's phenomenal in this movie. He's like his character is written very interesting too, because you think like he might be like a secondary villain in the beginning, but I think he really just has everyone's best interests at heart. He's very funny and just very cool and very subtle and relaxed. He's a pretty handsome guy too, but not too handsome because he's got like pockmarks on his face. Um, I mean, who am I to talk about the handsomeness of a human being? Um, but like, yeah, I mean, his performance in this movie is very cool, very good, very relaxed. I think he's like I think his performance is the best in this movie. I think they kind of shaft him though, if I can be honest with you. But yeah, so I mean, like this is like a very powerful cast. It's got the budget, $25 million. It's got great direction, great score, great effects, great writers. What could go wrong? But it kind of did. But yeah, runtime for this movie, 103 minutes. You know, not very long. I like to think that that's the kind of the perfect. I think that between an hour and a half and like 2 hours, 2 hours 15 minutes is perfect. Anything longer than that, and I think it's very hard to get the average person to watch a movie if it's like over 2 hours and something. Um, I know if I'm watching a movie with my girlfriend and I tell her, "Oh, it's 2 hours," and she'll be like, "All right, let me stop you right there." I don't because I think people just have a hard time paying attention to anything for like longer than 2 hours. I mean, for me, you know, I've seen Lawrence of Arabia like twice. Um, I've seen Ben Hur a bunch of times. I've seen Once Upon a Time in America. Long movies, no problem for me. If you like it, that just means there's more of it. You know what I mean? I mean, Avengers Endgame just came out like a couple years ago. It's like 3 hours long. People loved it. But yeah, so this is like in that range where it's like I think it's like the perfect length. Anything less than an hour and a half, too, I think is like a little. I'm like, how did this even get released? And there's just not bound to be much of anything great if it's like an hour long. Um, and how did I view this movie? I always find it interesting how people view movies nowadays because it's always the same thing. But every once in a while you get like oh, I watched it on DVD. I'm a DVD guy. I collect DVDs. I like a hard copy. I enjoy a hard copy myself. I I watched this movie Friday night, 2 days ago. I watched it on Laserdisc. I have this movie on Laserdisc. Yeah, I have an extensive collection of Laserdiscs, and I watched it on my Pioneer Elite Laserdisc player. But yeah, I got this Laserdisc off of eBay. It's deluxe letterbox edition, which means it's just widescreen. I I watched it on Laserdisc. It was the first time I viewed this particular copy of Leviathan on Laserdisc. I got on eBay about a month ago. Played perfectly. I The first time I saw this movie though, I rented it from the Lorraine Public Library, which is a library in a town over, because I saw that they had it available on the website. I initially came across this movie, I think through Prime Video. I was watching. What was I watching? I was watching something schlocky and kind of shitty, but still good. I think it was like Amazon Prime is really good for that. By the way, Prime Video has like a lot of, especially sci-fi horror stuff like that. It's got like a lot of stuff that's like kind of silly, kind of bad, but like kind of good. Um, oh yeah, I was watching Pumpkinhead, I think. And then I went to a deep dive, where you go below and it's like movies like this, and you click on a movie, and then that movie has movies like this below it, and then you just keep going. And I was just like, I think I'd gotten to like the movie Relic, which is a movie I'd like to do on this podcast. And then below it was like Leviathan. I was like, what's Leviathan? And then I saw it, and I was just like, ooh, I'll watch that. And it was like 4.99 rent. I said, no, thank you. Uh, but yeah, so then I rented it on DVD, watched it, and then I watched it again for this episode via Laserdisc. I'm a big, like I said, I'm a big hard copy guy. My Laserdisc collection is very large. My collection of VHS tapes, very large. A lot of the movies we do on this show, I'll probably be watching via Laserdisc or VHS. My DVD collection, yeah, un pequeño. It's a little small. I don't really collect DVDs that much. They're kind of expensive, and I think the cases for VHS and Laserdisc are like cool. They have like more craftsmanship and are interesting. I mean, Laserdisc you can literally open up and there's like paragraphs and paragraphs of information, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, why is this movie on this podcast? Why have people not seen this movie? Why do they miss this movie? So I think people miss this movie probably because I think it probably got buried by unfavorable reviews. You know what I mean? I think people didn't really like this movie at the time of the release, and I think it was kind of a very crowded genre. I think sci-fi horror in the 80s and early 90s was like very big. People were really, and honestly, sci-fi horror, not people's favorite genre. I think it's already kind of a genre that people don't really like because it can be kind of schlocky. Um, and I think critics didn't like it, and people didn't go see it, and then it gets buried. Because this is a very fun movie. I love watching this movie. It's not like a very thought-provoking movie. I don't think there's a lot of really strong themes, um, or like things to take away, but it's fun, you know. It's interesting to watch. I think people just missed it because of that. Um, and like also I think people compare it like unfavorably to like Alien or like The Thing, which it came out a couple years before. And believe me, The Thing and Alien are better movies. Don't get me wrong. And this movie is a straight ripoff of The Thing. It's just The Thing, but instead of being in like the Arctic, it's underwater. It's like, but like, hey, if you like The Thing, which I do, and you don't want to watch The Thing because you've seen it a million times, watch Leviathan. You know, changes it up a little bit. It's basically like a spirited sequel to The Thing. But you know, a monster comes aboard, hunts people down one by one, is gross looking, kills people in gross ways. I'm on board. I'm sorry. And then another reason this might have gotten buried, I think, is because, and this is crazy, I think in 1989, like six different movies came out that were all kind of like underwater sci-fi horror thriller movies. So like there was Leviathan, there was what was the other one? What was that? Sean Cunningham, Deep Star Six. There was James Cameron's The Abyss. There was like a bunch of them. There was six. Let me see if I can find out what the other. Stay with me here. I wish there was another person so that like someone could like I don't know. Okay, so I got it. Yeah, The Abyss, Deep Star Six, Leviathan, The Evil Below, uh, Lords of the Deep, and The Rift. And literally, with the exception of The Abyss, none of these movies were made any money or very critically acclaimed. That being said, though, The Abyss and Deep Star Six are movies I would definitely like to do on this podcast. Because if you like Leviathan, if you like The Thing, and are fascinated by like undersea exploration, like I am, these movies are it. You know, 1989 would have been a great year for me had I been alive, which I wasn't. But, but yeah, this movie budget, like I said, 25 million. Box office, 15 million. Didn't make any money. Rated R, you know, probably for like swearing or, you know, graphic, disgusting violence. So yeah, let's get into the movie beat by beat. Yeah, I got some notes here. Gotta go through 'em. Okay, so you know, the movie begins. You know, big words on the screen, Leviathan, um, and it's undersea footage of fish swimming about, and then you know, camera descends down, and it's you know, getting darker and darker and less fish, and it's like oh, showing you oh, these people are very far underwater, and then you know, there's opening credits: Peter Weller, Amanda Pays, Richard Crenna. Um, Eventually gets to creature effects by Stan Winston. Everyone in the audience is like, yes, yes. I mean, I personally will. Um, then there's like a little prompt on the bottom of the screen says Atlantic Ocean, 1,600 feet deep. It's pretty deep. I don't know how many miles that is. 1,600 feet, maybe like, more than 5 miles. I don't know. What's the conversion? Get back to me. Let me know. And give me, shoot, hit the email. Tell me what that is. Um, so these people work for the Tri-Oceanic Corp, and they work in the extraction of silver and precious metals from the ocean floor. And it says that their mission is classified as extremely hazardous, but they don't even know how hazardous it is or how hazardous it's gonna be. And it says that they're day 87 out of a 90-day shift. So these people have been down there for 90 days, or they're supposed to be down there for 90 days, and they're at day 87. So they're unbelievably close to getting to go back to the surface. Um, so then we meet the cast, we meet the ragtag crew of geologists and like miners and people like this, and you meet Peter Weller, who's our main character. Peter Weller from RoboCop, RoboCop 2, not RoboCop 3. But yeah, Peter Weller in this movie, his hair's long. He's got like some stubble. Peter Weller had a thick hair of hair back in the day too, I will admit, and he's wearing these little glasses. He looks hot. He looks good. Never seen Peter Weller look this good before. We meet Amanda Pay's character, the only British one for some reason. They don't explain why. Like it seems like an international organization, Tri-Oceanic Corp, but it's like everyone is American except for this woman. And her character goes by Willie because her last name is Williams. And then we meet Ernie Hudson's Justin Jones, and Daniel Stern's character's name is Six Pack, which is funny because it indicates like, oh hey, this is the Joker, this is the comic relief guy. Um, and I mean, Daniel Stern is in this movie, so we all knew who he was going to play. Could you imagine if Daniel Stern came in and he's the main serious guy? That'd be unbelievable. Excuse me, I'm just gonna take a sip. Coffee's getting cold here. Currently using the Shining miniseries DVD box as a coaster. If the Lorraine Public Library is listening, I'm sorry. So yeah, and then there's other people. There's the other characters. There is Michael Carmine's De Jesus, a token Hispanic character. Lisa Eilbacher's Bowman, a redheaded white woman. Hector Elizondo's Cobb, and this is our crew. And these people are about to, I think they're about to go on outside and mine the ocean floor for silver and precious metals. Um, so while they're out there mining, De Jesus begins hyperventilating, and he nearly suffocates. So there's some malfunction with his suit or something. It's the first moment of real suspense. Um, I wasn't really that interested. I was just like, oh, this is a thrilling part, but without creature, not count me out. The facility that they're in is terrific. And this scene kind of just highlights that, at least for me, because I was like, oh, if this dude dies that I just met, not really gonna be that mad. Um, but if he lives, also not gonna be that mad. Don't know this man. By having him hyperventilate and suffocate nearly in the first 2 seconds of the movie, I'm like, oh, he's weak for some reason. That's what I was like. I was like, oh, this is the weak link. But yeah, so they take this guy out of the water and they bring him up in this elevator thing. Like the way they bring people up from the water is this like cool elevator thing. It's like a platform that floats up and like then like seals, and then he's there, and like the ship looks incredible. And the suits that these people are in look like the old-timey diver suits, like a Big Daddy from BioShock or something, also mixed with astronauts. It looks crazy cool. It looks awesome. Like, it looks kind of clumsy to be going around in the deep sea, but I guess maybe they're at such extreme depths that they need the protection. I don't know. Okay, I'm not a scientist. Um, but yeah, Daniel Stern is skinny. I've never really seen him be skinny before, because like in Home Alone, he was like kind of getting a little doughy, and then when he popped up on Workaholics in that one episode, he was full on dad bod. Didn't even recognize him. So in this movie, he's skinny. Still has unfortunate facial hair. Um, but yeah, like I said, Ernie Hudson, no mustache, kind of threw me for a loop. Um, right, okay, and all the while, this guy, De Jesus, is hyperventilating. Peter Weller is trying to get a hold of the doctor, and the doctor for even is supposed to be right there with Peter Weller, but he's not. And everyone's like, "Call the doctor! Call the doctor!" He said, "Yeah, he's not here. I don't know where he's at." So the doctor's nowhere to be found. Um, but yeah, and then like Ernie Hudson is just like blaming Peter Weller for some reason for the doctor not being there, and it's just like, "Oh, Peter Weller's not a real leader. He's not even supposed to be here." And like we don't really know what that means, but like we find out later. But then Peter Weller confronts the doctor. He's like, "Where were you?" And the doctor says some like he brushes him off, and it's just like, "Oh, I was playing nine holes, don't you know?" You know. And he obviously like the doctor. That's the thing. He seems like a total dickhead, um, and he seems like he's like a secondary villain almost, like he's against these people. And that's how I think he's conveyed at first, which kind of would have been interesting. But yeah, so I mean, but De Jesus, um, he's fine. They get him inside and they get him breathing air, and he's okay again. And like Peter Weller goes to like, how like the leader will go into a room, and then he'll convey via computer screen with the real leader. Um, and he'll be like, okay, this is what's happening, here's what's going on. And the real leader will be like, well, you need to stay under budget or whatever, or else. And but or like so like the he's communicating with this woman through like a teleprompt screen thing. It's like there's a TV monitor. They're talking. She shuts it off abruptly. You know how she does. And that's her name is Miss Martin, and she's played by Meg Foster. Who Meg Foster, another person I've never seen in anything. But she's pretty good. She's wearing a pantsuit, hair tied, pulled back in a tight bun. And she reveals to us that Peter Weller is a geologist, and he was tasked with helping make this mine profitable. So he wasn't with them originally, and he was brought in by this company, and that's why people kind of have a healthy distrust and don't really like him because he was like brought in to keep them in line, basically. Um, so we learned that. Um, but aside from that, it seems like this group gets along very well. They're a really good group. Like the cast of this movie is terrific, and like if you want to watch this movie for anything, I think the one thing that is done really well is like the chemistry between the cast members and the way they all get along, and like it just feels very natural. Like if you wanted to make like a Sequest DSV type television show about these people, I would watch it. I think that's the one thing that they do just as well as like the movie The Thing. You know what I mean? The movie The Thing, Kurt Russell, Keith David, all these people, they have like a rapport, and they've been working together supposedly for months and months and months, and it shows. And I think this movie does that really well too, just as well as The Thing. Um, so yeah, they go out on another scouting trip to look for silver, and there is this one cool sequence where they drill into like part of the ocean floor, plant like a little explosive in there, and blow it up, and it reveals silver deposits. It's pretty cool. Um, Now, is it great for the ocean floor? Not really. But still pretty interesting, and very cool to see. But during this like routine scouting trip, Six Pack it's Six Pack and it's Amanda Pay's character Willie. They're both out there. They're both mining. Um, and Six Pack like falls into like a chasm basically. He like his cord thing that's providing oxygen to him um, gets caught under his foot and he trips and he falls down. And then Amanda Pays is like, "What? Where'd he go?" Um, and she ventures after him, and she ventures after him through this through a field of these things called tube worms, which like are like these giant things that look just like asparagus and they're like as tall as a human being. I don't know if they're real. I don't know what's going on with these things, but they're and like someone says they're like, man, what are those things? And Ernie Hudson's like, those are tube worms. And then like people, she's like, oh, okay. And I don't know if this is a real thing or not. I didn't bother looking up. Seems like it's not though, because they look very fake. Um, but I don't know if they're a real thing or not. I don't know if it's like a future 2027 thing, but I don't know. We're 6 years away from that right now, and I don't think that tube worms exist. Isn't it crazy that 1989 was like 32 years ago? Isn't that nuts? This movie came out 30 years ago. It's crazy. They thought, yeah, we're gonna have two worms by this time, and hey, guess what? I'm in that future. We still don't really have two worms, as far as I know. But yeah, and also during this scene, Peter Weller is like mission control back on the ship, and he's wearing like this tight red Henley with like the sleeves pushed up and it's tucked in, and he looks great. His fashion in this movie is phenomenal. And like he was wearing like an old style flat bill snapback sports looking hat earlier. He looked terrific. He looks great in this movie. I can't stress it enough. But yeah, so while Willie is like looking for Six Pack, it's unbelievable that that is something I have to say. Um, she stumbles upon this old the like the carcass basically of this old Russian ship just on the bottom of the ocean, and it looks like it's been there for a long time. You know, it's got like a busted open hull, you know, barnacles and stuff crawling all over it. And I don't know about you, but I think the idea of exploring like deep sea wreckage and like the effects of the ocean on stuff that's not supposed to be in it, like over time as it sits in the bottom of the ocean, is crazy and so cool and very interesting. Like the fact that like this stuff, like ships, are like so big. How the heck are you gonna get that out? If it sinks, it's just gonna stay there forever. Like I've seen like numerous documentaries about like the Titanic and stuff, and like the effects that the ocean has had on it, and how like it's wore away. Like people's clothes and bones have just been like are just gone now because of the effects of the ocean and how it moves and like how shit covers it up and how shit just wears it away. I'll stop swearing, but like it's like unbelievably interesting. I understand why James Cameron is like so obsessed with like deep sea wreckage and stuff because that's just so cool. And like you see this boat and you're like, man, I am in. I love stuff like this. Um, but yeah, my note it says Willie enters through a hole in the hull. Shipwrecks are sick, and they are. I can't even. Um, but yeah, and then there's some Russian lettering, you know, on the back of the ship, where you know it usually says the name. It's in Russian, and then Doctor Richard Crenna, whose character's name is Glenn Thompson, who they call Doc. Which that being said, like every doctor who people are familiar with is their nickname is Doc. So generic, isn't it? But yeah, so Doc can read Russian apparently. Who knows why? I think he said it was part of his undergraduate degree, but like I don't know what college he went to. But he says, oh, that the name of that ship is Leviathan. It's the name of the movie. Also a very cool name for a ship, Leviathan. If you're gonna name a ship and you're gonna name it something biblical, that means sea monster. It's freaking cool. But yeah, and then like I guess Bowman, which is like, you know, the redheaded female side character. Obviously just fodder for the monster later. She goes to the computer and she just basically Googles Leviathan. I guess they have a database or something. And she says, huh, Leviathan. says it, and she's like, huh, this says it's in active duty in the Baltic Sea right now. How can that be if it's sitting on the bottom of the ocean right here? Do they have two ships named Leviathan? Um, Also, it's interesting because like this is 1989, right? And like um, it says that the home port of this ship Leviathan is like Leningrad in the notes. You see the write up on the ship that Bowman is looking at, and it says home port Leningrad, which is so funny because like before the collapse of the Soviet Union, it was called Leningrad for Vladimir Lenin, but then like after the Soviet Union was dissolved, I think they renamed it St. Petersburg. So it's just like very dated that this movie was literally like a Cold War movie. But yeah, so Willie's looking around this boat, this sunken ship, and she finds Six Pack, and Six Pack has found this Russian safe. And he's like, "Oh man, we're gonna be rich." Even though, sir, are you really that concerned about money? I mean, you're on a deep sea diving vessel. I don't know. You're probably making pretty good money. But yeah, so they bring the safe aboard, and it contains a lot of stuff. Like it contains a bottle of vodka, a captain's log on tape, a flask, and the personal effects of several dead people in like cute little accordion folders. And Six Pack, unbeknownst to the rest of the crew, pockets the flask, whereas Peter Weller confiscates the vodka and everything else. So Dr. Richard Crenna and Peter Weller view the captain's log, and it reveals that the ship's infirmary was full of people with some tropical illness. And then it looks like he's about to say something else, and then it cuts out. And then they look over camera footage from Willie's helmet, and like the doctor is looking at it, and he's like, "Hey, look at that hole in the hole right there, Peter Weller, look at it. Um, that's from a missile." And they come to the conclusion that their ship, this Russian ship, was scuttled, which means that they sunk it themselves. So that's very ominous, and alludes to something else. Like, why would a crew possibly sink their own ship and kill themselves? Full sick bays, not looking good. Um, but like, it's funny too, because like Peter Weller is talking to the doctor. Also, I don't know why this doctor has any knowledge of why a boat looks like how this doctor can tell that like this boat has been scuttled, given he's a medical doctor. But Peter Weller doesn't care. He's like, yeah, who cares if they sunk the ship? Who cares about this Russian ship at all? I'm just here to look for silver and get the heck out of here. Like he really doesn't care about these things he definitely should care about. And this apathy is like only really in this one scene because the rest of the movie he's like a leader and he cares. But like this, I was just like, what is happening? Um, and it's funny then, like while these two are doing this, it cuts to scenes where like um, the rest of the crew steals Peter Weller's personal information to look for important dates to use as a combination to get into the safe that Peter Weller locked up the vodka in. These people, fiends. They said, I haven't had a drink in 90 days. I need this vodka right now. So they break into the safe to get the vodka that Peter Weller hid from the Russian ship. But it turns out Peter Weller already switched the vodka for water, knowing that his crew would break into the safe. Um, but then in the next scene, Bowman and Sixpack are then seen drinking from the flask that Sixpack stole from the safe. So they got their little drink anyway. Um, and also all the while, there's a storm brewing ahead, and they keep feeling the effects of it because the ship keeps like creaking, and they're getting some weather updates. They got some weather updates from Meg Foster earlier, so there's a storm brewing. My next note is Peter Weller is handsome, blue eyes, nice smile. Easy, Jace. We get how you feel about Peter Weller in this movie. Relax. Sorry, if you can take another sip. Maybe I'll edit that out later. I don't really know. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this, or if I'm gonna edit it at all. But yeah, so Six Pack. right after drinking from the flask, says he starts feeling sick, and he says it's a hangover. The night, it's because it's the next day. But then the doctor discovers these lesions on his back, right? And these lesions are just like little contusions in his back. They don't really look like anything. But then he develops chills, and he's very cold, and he looks very sickly and pale. And then the doc takes a sample, and then he sees that like six-pack cells are mutated. And he confers with some colleague at another station. And then the colleague is just like, listen, man, I've never seen anything like this. It looks like he's had some sort of genetic alteration. So his cells are being changed, dude. They're being messed with. So then it happens very fast, but Six Pack dies like almost right away, within 8 hours, it says. And it's crazy too, because like the doctor literally is like within seconds, he's like, yeah, he died right after coming off that ship. Something about that ship was weird. We need to test Willie, and we need to test every one of the crew who came in contact with the stuff from the Russian ship. Like this doctor character is a professional dude. He's so great. I'm obsessed with his character in this movie. It's so good because he's like so competent. He's like the smartest person in the room at any given time. He's like way more of a leader than Peter Weller's character. As much as I like the way Peter Weller looks, and he is a pretty good leader in this movie. Like the doctor, just like is the doctor is the leader for some reason. But he examines the crew, and none of them have any other symptoms. The Six Pack has, but then right as they're about to examine Bowman, who was the other one who took the drink from the flask, Doc is called away by Peter Weller because they're going to go talk to Nick Foster's character, the boss in the mainland, and Doc, both Doc and Peter Weller's character is Stephen Beck is his name. Doc and Beck both request immediate emergency removal, but Meg Foster says that the storm is delaying them for 12 hours, so they're not even going to be able to get out of there in the time they thought they were going to be able to. Because remember, I said they're 87 days into a 90-day cycle, and that was 87. Now they're into the 89th day, and they're like, "You should be picking us up, right? Can you pick us up sooner?" She said, "Actually, it'll be like 12 hours because of the storm." Um, but yeah, so Bowman falls ill. She gets the chills. She has the lesions. She has to be helped into the medical bay by Willie and Ernie Hudson. Um, and like while Willie is attending to Bowman, Ernie Hudson sees Six Pack's body lying on the table, and the doctor hasn't disclosed to the crew that he's dead yet. So Ernie Hudson thinks he's alive. He goes over and he starts talking to him, and he's like, "Man, why aren't you talking to me? Are you asleep?" And then like he touches Six Pack's body, and Six Pack's body like moves and gyrates, but it looks like he's just like rolling over because he's asleep. And Ernie Hudson's like, "Okay, man, I'm sorry, I'll leave you alone." It's a very cool, very suspenseful scene because it's just like he doesn't know the Six Pack's dead. He's talking to him, and because Six Pack is mutating and it looks like he's moving, Ernie Hudson thinks he's alive still, and he's like, "All right, man, I won't bother you." So it's like a cool way to be like, "Oh, this body not entirely dead," in a way that doesn't like exactly like start things off right away. Very cool. Like one of my favorite scenes. And then so like Ernie Hudson and Willie go to get the doctor, and Bowman, feeling very sick, goes into Six Pack's room to like be like, Six Pack, are you okay? What's wrong? What's happening to me? And she sees like Six Pack, like his arm falls out from underneath the sheets, and it's like gross and like gooey and leaking stuff, and it's disgusting. And she sees that and she's horrified. Um, And then it cuts to the rest of the crew and they're looking for her and they can't find her. And they come across her in the shower and she slit her wrists. So I guess she saw what she was going to become and was like mortified. So she like, murdered her own self, take herself off the board. So then they put Bowman and Six Pack together, like in the sick bay. And they when they come across them, and a few minutes later, their bodies have like merged and they're starting to like come together underneath the sheet. and they're like joining each other because like the creature's like assimilating and growing. But yeah, you don't really get to see it that much because it's under a sheet, and then they put it in a body bag. It's so it's funny too because like within seconds of seeing it, they're like zipping up into a body bag. Like there's no scenes of them being like, "Oh my gosh, that's disgusting. What is happening?" They look at it, they say, "Ooh," and then immediately put it in a body bag. And like there's a scene of them all carrying it like towards the towards the platform where they can eject it out into the water. But as they're carrying the body to I don't know, the airlock, the water lock, I don't know what you would call it, to flush the creature out, it comes alive and it claws its way out of the bag and it scratches the Cobb in the chest. Cobb, Hector Alizondo's character, he's like, I think he's like an engineer and like a maintenance man, so he knows like the way of the ship. It showed that earlier. He fixed something. I didn't think it was important to recognize, but just give us some background on the character. Um, but yeah, so it scratches Cobb, but then they successfully put it in the airlock and shoot it away. But the airlock door slices like one of the legs off, and the leg is like it's seen like it falls into the water below and like floats away. Um, and then like even though they release the creature, so they release the creature into the airlock, and it's a very cool scene where there's like really subtle music and the creature just kind of floating away. And you think, oh, okay, it's out, it's good, it's no longer their problem. But then you see like the creature vision, like you see like creature cam, and you see its point of view, and it's then seen like swimming away. So it's not dead, it's alive, but it's just in the water now. But for now, it's not their problem anymore. So then you cut to the leg that has been that got cut off the creature, and then it's crawled onto a platform, and then it grows like this mouth, and the mouth comes off the leg and it becomes like a serpent. It's disgusting. Um, Pretty great effect though, Stan Winston. You don't eat your heart out, but then like it's like it cuts to Doc and Beck, and they're looking at the camera footage again, and they see in the med bay like a like a skeleton, like the skeletal remains of a human, which they thought was just a human at first, but then they look at it and there's like another skull like in the human's rib cage, and the hand is all weird, and they're like, oh shite, whatever was going on this Russian ship, they were like experimenting on these people, and it must have, and they determined that it's like it must have been through the flask because they find the flask and they're like they must have been like dousing their own Russian crew members like not dousing, but like drugging their own Russian crew members by putting these like these genetic mutagens in like the vodka, and they like the doctor and like Beck are like, well, they must have been like doing that to their crew so that like to deter like they were like experimenting on their crew to see if they could like survive underwater. They were like trying to turn them into like sea creatures to get like some sort of advantage in mining. I don't really know. That part was a little weird, but so then it's funny. The next scene is like the rest of the crew, and they're all freaking out. And then De Jesus is like, "Hey man, you deal with this your way. I'm gonna deal with it mine. I'm gonna make some popcorn and watch a movie." And then Ernie Hudson is like, "How can you watch a movie at a time like this? How can you even eat at a time like this?" And he's getting mad. But then he comes to a sense and he's like, "All right, here, I'll watch the movie with you. Go get the popcorn." And then De Jesus goes to get the popcorn, and he's attacked by that teeth serpent thing. And this is a pretty cool creature effect part. This is probably like the best death I think in the movie, because it's like the one that's kind of shown the most, even though it's not really. Oh, here, let me just get into it. So the snake thing attacks De Jesus, and it like wraps around him, and it burrows into his chest. It's pretty gruesome. It's like it uses its teeth to like latch on, and then it like burrows into his chest and torso, and then like blood's getting everywhere. And then De Jesus is like freaking out. He's like thrashing, and in his thrashing, he like rips these like cords from the wall. He rips these tubes out of the wall, and they spray this orange liquid all over him. They spray this orange liquid all over him everywhere, so he's like doused in this like orange liquid, kind of looks like blood, and he just looks very cool. Like there's a shot of it on my laser disc in the background. You know how they have like little pictures of the movie, like here's what you're in store for. That's one of them. It's a very cool scene, very great death scene. And he's like in pain, he's screaming, and he's screaming at Ernie Hudson, and Ernie Hudson's like, I'm gonna go get help, and he's like, hey, please don't leave me. And Ernie Hudson's out. He pieces out. He's gone. And he locks him in the sick bay, and then he goes to get the rest of the group. So then they regroup with Williams and Beck and the doctor, and they arm themselves with mining tools. But they go back to the room, and the door's broken down, and De Jesus and the creature are nowhere to be found. And then they come across, they're like looking around for it, and they come across like the med bay, and they realize that the creature has like gotten into the blood supply of like blood for like blood transfusion stuff, and it like has drank all the blood, and it's like using it to grow, I think. And it's like using it to grow and like form its body, this blood. Um, so then, of course, they're like, "Hey, man, this thing's gonna come after us. We need to get the heck out of here. We got the escape pods, and we gotta go." And then they're like, "Oh, we can't go. We don't know if we can go because of the storm." And then they agree. They're like, "We should chance it anyway." So then the doctor sneaks to the infirmary, and he sends a message that we don't really see to like the powers that be, the Trioceanic Corp. And then he jettisons the escape pods so that they can't escape, which is very much like the Doctor and the Thing. It's like an exact ripoff. Because remember, maybe you don't remember who am I even talking to? That in the Thing, the guy like destroys like all the vehicles and like the communication so the disease can't get out. And that's exactly what this doctor's doing here. Which I mean, it's like a hard choice to make, but it is probably the right decision. We don't want this getting out into the real world. But yeah, and then Beck and Jones plan to lure the creature um, to what they call the swamp, which is like this like the bay where they flushed out the creature the first time. They plan to get it back there, like using blood they harvest from themselves. So they harvest a bunch of blood from themselves, and they put it. They like spray it all over the airlock. It's not an airlock because they're not in space. They we'll just call it the swamp because that's what they call it. They spray blood all over this like elevator in the swamp, and they're like, all right, we're gonna lure this thing here, and we're gonna jettison it out. Um, but then, of course, Cobb, who was scratched earlier, remember, starts feeling sick. Um, and they see, like, he was scratched across the chest. They take a look at his bandage, and it's, like, moving, and it's, like, pulsating. And they're like, that's not good. And then, like, Doc tries to take a look at it, and then, like, Cobb stops him. He puts up his hand, but then a mouth opens, like, inside of his hand, like, with teeth. And he, like, puts his hand on the doctor, and then it cuts out, and we don't really see what happens. Um, But I mean, it's obviously alluding to the fact that he got assimilated. And then in the other room, Beck and Jones and Willie are talking to that woman, Meg Foster, Miss Martin, and he's like, "Listen, man, there's this it's getting crazy. We need emergency evacuation now." And she's like, "Listen, the hurricane's getting really bad. We don't even know if we'll be able to make it in 12 hours. So you guys just need to hang on." And it's funny. There's this line where she says, "I know you've been through hell," and Ernie Hudson says, "Been through? We're still in it right now." He said, "Oh yeah," he said, "Been through, bitch. We're still here," and it's hilarious that he says that. And then she responds with, "Well, I can't control the weather," and I'm like, "What is that? That '70s show quote? 10 years before." So they're all like gathered together before they're about to do this thing. The doctor has disappeared, and it's just Willie, Jones, and Beck. Um, and earlier, they were talking like when it was just like, "Hey, camaraderie. Let's get to know the characters." They were talking about stocks and how um, Williams, Amanda Pay's character, has stock in a company that they work for. And she says, she's like, man, something seems fishy about what's going on. Let's check the stock of the Trioceanic Corp. And it's revealed that the Trioceanic Corp stock is plummeting because supposedly earlier that day, um, the mining station, Station 7, 1,600 feet under the ocean, extracting silver, um, was destroyed in an accident, and all the people on board were killed. So, like, they find out through this thing with through checking the stocks, they find out that Miss Martin, even though she said that help was coming, has actually reported them all dead, to cover her losses, and that she thinks they're all going to die, and she's not even trying to help them, so they're on their own. Like the people who said they're coming are not coming, and it's revealed through this way, which I thought was so clever and actually very well done. And it's funny too because Ernie Hudson has a line. He says he's just like, "Man, I guess help's not coming," and then Ernie Hudson's like, "Yeah, welcome to the Union, boss." And I thought that was funny. So yeah, and then also there's this thing where they posturize that like creature as it assimilates people acquires their knowledge. So at this point in the movie, the oxygen supplies are cut off because the creature like destroys a bunch of pipes, and using Cobb's knowledge of like the maintenance and stuff is like trying to cut these people off and kill them by cutting off their oxygen. Um, and at this point, the creature appears, and it's very fish-like, and it's got people's heads on it, and like the tail is made of arms and legs, and it's got people's arms shooting off of it, and it's of course very disgusting. It isn't shown very long though, which I was disappointed in. I thought the creature should have gotten a little more screen time, especially when you got Dan Winston effects. I mean, flaunt them, But they must have known that it kind of didn't really look that scary because it kind of looks like a fish with arms jutting out of it. So it's not the best, not the most confident in Stan Winston effects. I guess they were. But yeah, it just looks like a fish with a bunch of human heads and arms on it, and you see DeJesus's head, and it's like kill me, oh my gosh, kill me, and it's like still kind of conscious. It's creepy. Um, but then they successfully lure the creature into the swamp with the blood, and then they try to flush it out, and in the flushing process it gets like squashed in between the panels, and like its head explodes and it's very bloody. It's a pretty good scene. But again, the creature's on screen for like 30, for like 10 seconds. It's very brief. Um, so then they think they've won. They think it's over. Um, they've successfully killed this creature. Um, and they're like, well, storm or not, we need to get the heck out of here because we're running out of oxygen. So they take their suits and they exit the station, and then they start swimming towards the surface, and then they use their suits, like I guess it's built into their suits that they can jettison parts of their suit and it'll shoot them up faster towards the surface, kind of like a rocket ship. How like after it gets into the atmosphere, like a bunch of parts fall off. You know, space, NASA. I don't really know, but um, so then they breach the surface and they're all happy and excited. Um, Beck and Willie share a kiss, even though I don't really know if their romantic relationship or anything like that was even really touched on in the movie at all. But it's okay. So funny. They're attacked by sharks. They're sitting there waiting for rescue, and they're like shooting flares up, and then they're attacked by sharks. This is funny because I was like, "Oh, what am I in Jaws? Is this Jaws now? What does this movie become? Why did they even put this in here? I don't even understand this." But then the sharks go away um, because a giant creature, I guess the final mutation of Bowman and Six Pack that was jettisoned away earlier, um, grown exponentially by now. It's like bigger than like a single man, it breaches the surface and it's like trying to kill them. And again, it looks like kind of like it has like a fish head, and then it's got like human body parts on it. It's seen very briefly. Like the creatures in this movie, I think they knew that it didn't really look that scary. Like it's not. It doesn't really look like the thing. Like it wants to be the thing, but it's not the thing. And it's just like it kind of looks like mutated humans, but it mostly just looks like a fish. I don't know. And they're like, it's not the best stand, so we're gonna give it as little screen time as possible. But then it's like Jones charges at the creature, and it like giving Peter Weller and Willie a chance to escape. So then they back away from the thing, and the creature it drowns Ernie Hudson. Like it doesn't eat him or claw him or even assimilate him. It literally just holds his head underwater until he drowns, which is like insane. Like why would that be how Ernie Hudson dies? This is a monster with claws and teeth, and it's like a mutating thing. So like why would it possibly drown him? That doesn't make any sense. And I thought that was like the craziest thing in the movie. I said, why would this giant creature? But yeah, so Ernie Hudson, most lackluster death in the entire movie. But then this part is followed by like the most laughable, crazy, funny. I did love it, but like it was insane that it happened. So Peter Weller has this thermal charge, right? It looks like a little Nerf. It looks like a little Nerf football thing, and he primes it. And I'm not kidding. This is exactly what happens. I'm not putting any sort of spin on this. Peter Weller says, "Say ah, motherfucker." He says that. He says, "Say ah, motherfucker," like "Smile, you son of a bitch" from Jaws, or like "Yippee ki motherfucker." Like it's like a quip. It's like he's saying that to this creature too. Has no idea what he's talking about. He says, "Say ah, motherfucker," and then he literally like has like a step back, and he shoots this thermal charge like a 3-pointer. Literally, I'm not kidding you. He has like a gooseneck arc, and he like steps back. He says, "Say ah, motherfucker," and he steps back and fires this 3-pointer into this creature's mouth, causing the creature's head to explode. It's one of the greatest 10 seconds in any movie I've ever seen in my entire life. I've rewatched it on YouTube 3 times since I watched this movie 2 days ago. It is unbelievably funny. I literally in my notes it says Peter Weller does this hilarious in all caps. So funny. It's so unbelievably funny and comical. It has no place in this movie. Don't know why he wouldn't just toss it in there with no theatrics. It's just unbelievable. But then yeah, the creature dies. I guess. I don't know. It's like a mutating creature made of like flesh. Not sure why just killing its head would cause it to die, but that's what we're meant to believe because it's the end of the movie. And there's no red herring or ominous open ending thing going on at all. It's just death, and it just floats in the water and dies. And they're picked up by the chopper. The chopper? Get together, Chase. I've been talking for a while now, but so they're dropped on the helipad on like I guess what is like some sort of deep sea platform. You know how they have for like deep oil drilling or whatever. And they're greeted by Miss Martin. Um, Peter Weller's wearing another Henley again. He looks great. I love the Henleys. I love a good Henley with the tucked in with the sleeves. It just looks terrific. And then Miss Martin, this lady who obviously, declared them dead, and like left them for dead and didn't try to help them at all because she thought they were a lost cause. It's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you guys are alive. The board didn't think you'd make it, but I always knew. And Peter Weller, I kid you not, very problematic that he does this. And this is the way the movie ends. And it's a positive note. In mid sentence, he knocks this woman unconscious. He punches her in the face. Like, You could never do that in a movie today. Never in a million years have a sequence where a man just punches a woman in the face. It's insane. And that's how the movie ends. It's a positive note. He said, "Yeah, knock that woman out." I mean, she did leave you for dead, but I don't know if you could have had Amanda Pays hit her or something. Been a lot better. But Peter Weller knocks her out, and then he and Amanda Pays just walk into the sunset, and the movie's over. It ends on a man punching a woman in the face. Maybe that's why people miss this movie because there's man on woman violence, which is never great. Um, but yeah, so that's the movie. Very interesting overall way to end a movie. I think the last 20 minutes are utterly insane. A lot of stuff going on, but I think the movie in itself terrific. On the back of my Laserdisc here, there's a review from the San Diego Union, a beautifully crafted thriller. And I don't know about beautifully crafted, but it is a pretty well crafted thriller, and I enjoyed it. So yeah, just to wrap up here, I guess we'll talk about just some stuff, just some some finishing business here. I always have like some unanswered questions if there are any like outstanding questions. I'll talk about the best scene and I'll talk about like improvements that could have been made. You know what I mean? And then maybe I'll read some reviews, read some trivia, and then we'll cut out of here. But It's funny because like okay, so there's this scene, when they shoot up at the very end when they shoot up into the ocean, like they breach the surface, and it's like oh they're saved, they're good, they made it. Um, they had all this gear, they had their suits that were propelling them up, but when they get to the surface, they're not wearing any suits at all. So it's like, what happened to their suits? It's like an obvious like production continuity blunder. They just didn't notice, but unanswered question. Um, and also, like, why did the ship captain of like the captain of that Russian vessel not know that they were drugging the people on board their ship? Like, you think the captain would kind of be in on that? He's like, I don't know what's happening. They got a tropical disease. The infirmary is full of people. But it's just like, listen, man, if you're the captain, I'm pretty sure the scientists are going to be queuing you in. I don't know. I think my favorite scene are DeJesus's death, or that end thing with Peter Weller and shooting that 3-pointer thermal charge into that guy's mouth, the creature's mouth. I thought that was great. Um, a lot of great scenes, great score, just overall great chemistry between the cast. I liked it. I love this movie. I'll watch it probably again and again. There definitely, that being said, definitely some improvements I would like to make. I think overall the creature effects, like the creature, not the creature effects themselves, um, like because like they weren't bad. I mean, Stan Winston, so it looks great, but they barely showed the creature when it was there. Like whether it was the big creature at the end or the creature whose head they crush on the platform. It's just like the creature is literally on screen in both scenes, maybe for like 30 seconds, 10 seconds. Like it's not, and like here, I'll let me. This is on the back of my label. Just let me read this to you. Uh, the perpetually regenerating mutant aberration, gill-headed, 5-inch long spiked teeth, scaled body, and tail formed from human legs, presents a hideous image of unforgettable horror. Like it's pretty forgettable. I won't lie to you. I wouldn't say it's like it is hideous, but it's just like if there was a tail of human legs, you saw it for 1 second and then it was gone. Like the creature had like no screen time, and I would have liked to be able to see the creature for longer. Also, when I did see the creature, not very scary, just kind of looked like a fish with some human body parts like sewed into it. And I think that I don't know, Stan Winston, could have done better. My expectations were high, and I kind of soared far below them. So it didn't soar, kind of fell below them. But what can you do? They can't all be home runs for Stan Winston. I think this might have been his weakest showing I've seen. But, yeah, and also I think the kills were a little lackluster. Um, like Ernie Hudson, remember? He was just drowned by the creature. Um, and like for the doctor and um, Cobb, like you just see his hand turn into a mouth and it closes around the doctor, and that's really all you see of him. You do see the doctor in a few scenes later. He's shown like stumbling around, kind of mutating, but again, you don't really see anything, and you don't really see what happens to Jesus. All you see is that he busts out of the room, and then I guess he converts with the other creatures to become the big creature. But again, none of these kills like are really that satisfying. You don't really get to see them happen, so that's kind of a bummer. Like if you compare this movie to The Thing, which of course people do, like The Thing, I mean like the special effects in that movie so good, and like the kills, some of them so gross. Like that first one where you see that guy like under the blanket and you take the blanket off and you see him mutating next to the table, or like the one where like you find out like they electrocute that guy's blood and it like freaks out and then his head splits open and grabs that other guy. So disgusting, so cool. It's amazing. Or like that one or the creature at the end. When you see the creature at the end, it's like it's great. It's just like people want to see that stuff. That's why they go to a body horror movie to see like the grotesque and like to not even utilize it really, or to not even like show it is like yeah, kind of a bummer. So yeah, now I guess I'll just get into some last little bit of trivia just in case anyone finds this stuff interesting. This is just called from like IMDb and Wikipedia and stuff like that. Um, so just like some interesting information I found was that Stan Winston and George Cosmatos went through a mini library of marine life pictures and like reference books to like come up with the creature design. So they came up with the idea of combining human body parts and elements of marine life. Um, which I'll be honest with you, I don't think really landed. I think if you're gonna make a creature like this, I understand. I think the combination of human body parts and marine life is cool, but just the way they did it was not great. You could have made it like a lot grosser. Um, but yeah, a few scenes in the film. Um, Most of the scenes were shot on sound stages and tanks, so almost none of the movie was shot in actual water. Because like I don't know, I mean I've heard that shooting in water is like miserable for actors, so I guess I understand not wanting to do that. Um, I guess Stan Winston really enjoyed working on this movie. Um, not only because of the guy who designed the creature, but I guess they got to live in Italy for 4 months, and they got to learn scuba diving. So Stan Winston had a blast, and he reports having such like a fun time making this movie. Although, and I'm glad for that, but I wish he would have had a worse time, and focused a little more on making the creature better. Quit scuba diving, quit being on the canal. You know, quit having cappuccinos and little side parlors and just work on the effects, Danny. You know, um, Stan Winston did build the deep dive suits and designed um, like all the special effects really like so like the facility and the suits all Stan Winston, which they look really cool. But yeah, overall, I don't want it to sound like I'm bashing the movie or anything. Sorry, I came in a little hot there. I can tell from my readings. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think this movie is like, if you want good creature effects, maybe just watch The Thing. Just kidding. But like the creature effects in this movie, despite being a little lackluster, I don't think really take away from the overall suspense and the thrills of the movie. I think the movie is very, very good, very interesting. It didn't. I wasn't like. I personally think the worst thing a movie can be is boring, and this movie is certainly not that. Between the stuff that's like batshit crazy, um, and like silly and doesn't really make any sense, It's all watchable. I don't think any of it is like I didn't look away for 1 second. I wasn't like, there's so many distractions. So easy to be distracted. Especially when you're in the comforts of your own home. There's a million things around you could just start doing. Um, but this movie kept my interest. Kept my interest the whole time. Great cast, great soundtrack. Everything looks great. The cinematography. The cinematographer is Alex Thompson, who Alex Thompson is like a real pro too. He did so much stuff. R.I.P. Alex Thompson. I think he won an Academy Award for some of his cinematography. I mean, his stuff just looks terrific. Um, I mean, he did John Borman's Excalibur, which is a movie very near and dear to my heart. He did Legend, Labyrinth, um, Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet, Alien 3. He did the cinematography in a lot of his stuff. Is just great. It looks terrific, and it's just a fun movie. Great watch. A lot of things to like about this movie. So I definitely highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, which I'm sure you haven't. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. This was wow, this went a lot longer than I thought it would. Hour and 41 minutes almost. But yeah, I plan to do this pretty regularly, maybe like once every week, once every 2 weeks, something like that, schedule permitting. Um, and again, if you have anything to add, any corrections you want to make to anything I said, um, be nice. But you can reach us at our email address, moviesyouMissed@gmail.com. I'll put that link in the show notes. And whenever I come back next week or the week after, I I will. I think I'm gonna do Congo or um that Charlton Heston movie with the mummies, The Awakening. I think I'm gonna do that. Not to be mixed up with the Robin Williams, Robert De Niro movie Awakenings, which definitely I think will be coming along down the line because I think that's a movie people haven't seen but should see too. Very beautiful film. But yeah, I think Congo or The Awakening or maybe John Frankenheimer's Prophecy that's coming next. But stay tuned. And if you have any suggestions, like I said, reach out to me at the email. But I appreciate you listening, and I hope you learned something here today, and I hope you have a terrific day. All right, I'll talk to you guys. Not talk to you. I won't talk to you. I'll talk at you next time. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. All right, bye bye.